Well, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Daily Scrum. I'm Kevin Rouch. It's Wednesday, June 18th. We're coming to you from Studio B in the Elmwood Media Complex. Beautiful city of Grandview Heights, Ohio. We got a good day for you today. You know, we always try to tell you who's on the slide first. That's our slide that accompanies this audio broadcast, and on there today is our first race car. That is, and maybe an old one. We'll check with our guest today. Our good friend Logan Morris coming on later to discuss NASCAR, and I'm going to get him to talk a little bit about IndyCar, just a little bit. But that is Austin Cindric's car. Now, you might say, why would we be partial to Austin Cindric, who's part of the Penske team in NASCAR? It's because he was born right here in Columbus, Ohio, when his dad was working with Bobby Rahall's team, Jim Truman's team, based here in Columbus, and his dad working for the teams, and Austin was born here. So there you go. That's why. And that'll be one of the questions we ask to our friend Logan Morris coming up from Racing Refresh. Also want to remind you that we have got, because we want to seem literate on this show, we, following in the footsteps of Oprah, Reese Witherspoon, we will have our book club. And of course, I've mentioned on this show, I'm partial to the 1969 book Behind the Mask by Bill Freehan, the catcher for the Detroit Tigers. First sports book I ever read. That will not be part of the book club. It's actually hard to find now. And so we've got others. We've already talked about one. And so we're going to revisit that tomorrow, our book club, and what we're going to try to do with it. So we hope you'll stay tuned for that. Also want to briefly go over NHL. They're done. And our now three-time guest, Ed Francis, was right. Florida in 6. They beat Edmonton. The Panthers did last night 5-2 in a game that really wasn't that close. A couple of empty net goals at the end, and just really dominant play by Florida yesterday. Sam Reinhart scores 4 of their 5. Matthew Tkachuk had the other one. Reinhart's 4 included a couple of empty netters in the third period. But a big 5-1 win. And maybe I shouldn't have given Reinhart a hard time yesterday. I know it wasn't really a hard time. I was just wondering why he was on the Canadian top 6 that they released for the Olympic team next year, displacing Brad Marchand, who was on it for 4 Nations. And Marchand had 6 goals in the series. Well, Reinhart did okay. He had 4 just last night. So I guess he answered that question. The Conn Smythe Trophy winner, most valuable player in the playoffs, is Sam Bennett. So the Sams do well for Florida. He led the field with 15 goals in the postseason. Had 5, one short of Marchand's 6 against the Oilers. And what a statement. What a big statement win by the Florida Panthers. 2 years in a row. Really showing that a team-based approach, that is the talent spread out over the team with a lot of people starting. I just named 3 people that all had big roles. And that looks as though that beats the 2 superstar approach when you're maybe not quite as deep in the Edmonton Oilers. So Florida, We'll see if that then translates. And I think it already has started doing this before this year with their win last year. I think teams are trying to get more physical, not necessarily bigger, but more physical, because Florida not physically imposing in terms of height and overall weight. It's just guys who want to just be chippy and go hit you. And I think that's what teams are going to be looking for. We got a couple of those guys on the Blue Jackets, right? Matthew Olivier, one of my very favorite players ever in the history of the sport, who showed, I just think it's an incredible story with him, with the Blue Jackets, because he came in as kind of the enforcer, which the Blue Jackets needed. They were getting pushed around for a number of years. We talked about it yesterday with Ed. And Olivier changed that in a big time hurry over the last couple of years. But he's also, this year, he came in and showed what he can do, skating and scoring and assisting, becoming a total player. And maybe he always was. Maybe he just didn't have the chance, but he sure showed it last year. So the Blue Jackets on their way, and I think Don Waddell, their GM, wants them to be that way. We'll see that in how he conducts his business over the offseason. Have a full offseason in which to work this year. And we'll see their approach in the draft as well. So that coming up, but hockey, kind of as we know it, done for the year. Look forward to getting back at it. I hope to get the credentials to sit on press row again this year. You just never know with me. You know, I'm not sure how people look and see the value, but I hope they do, because I like it and we'll keep on reporting it. NBA playoffs. They will be back at it tomorrow at Indianapolis. OKC up 3-2. They can close it out on the road after getting the home win on Monday to go up 3-2. Tomorrow night's game, 8:30 at Gamebridge Fieldhouse in Indy. That'll be on ABC. Looking forward to seeing that. We'll see how Tyrese Halliburton, how much he's able to be a factor. If he's not, I think it's over. I don't think that Indianapolis has a chance. We saw that kind of in the second half, especially that fourth quarter on Monday's, or in Monday's game. So if he can't come back and play full boat, I just don't see how Indianapolis can make that happen. We've seen stranger things. So you never know. We will continue to keep an eye on that. And we get ready now for our, see if we can get him here. Logan, are you there? Logan, do we have you? Let's try that one more time. You know, it's just always a coin flip on this thing. Oh, Lordy. Let's see if we can get him here. Such a prima donna, Logan. Hey, Logan, are you there? Hello, Logan. See if we can. Logan, can you hear me?
Yep. Yes, sir.
I do not know why this just doesn't like to play along very well sometimes. We're going to get you ramped up here, okay?
Okay.
Hey, how you doing, man?
I'm doing well. I'm getting much better. A lot better than the last time we chatted.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Well, I'm glad you are. And, you know, you're here because you're the great racing aficionado in my life. And, you know, you're the go-to guy to get this. But before we do that, I also know your other love. We share a passion for the Cincinnati Reds. And how are you feel? I mean, they're doing okay right at the moment, right?
Absolutely. They're a young, streaky team, but I'm really excited where they're at. I think they're really hitting their stride. I mean, they've had great pitching all year long. The offense has been a little consistently inconsistent, as they say. But overall, I feel really good about where they're at because it's such a young core, and they got the right veteran guy in Tito to lead them along. I think we're in for a really fun down the stretch season.
All right. Well, we'll come back to you for that. All right. Because you're going to have to be our Reds guy as well. So I just want you to, well, I know you're going to stay on top of that. I'm not worried about that. Okay. Now.
Well, well, I'm a lot like Superman, Kevin. I can turn that costume around anytime.
Yeah. I often think of you that way.
I appreciate it. I mean, God gave me CP to keep me humble.
Well, and you mentioned that, and I want to tell you, because I don't think this comes up. You mentioned CP. You have cerebral palsy, and I have not seen that slow you down in any way.
Well, I appreciate that so much, Kevin. Thank you.
Well, you have difficulty walking, and I don't mind mentioning things. We've all got our own struggles. You know mine, and I just think you handle it with a lot of grace, a lot of poise, and you don't let it get in your way. And I've just always admired that about you.
Well, thank you so much.
Now that people know a little bit more, by the way, you know what the best thing about audio is?
What's that?
They can't see us. And I think
it's wonderful. Yeah,
no, I agree. And one of these days we're going to roll. I had a thought last night, actually woke me up, about doing the Daily Scrum, like after hours of video, like talk show. What do you think?
I think that's wonderful. I hope I get to be your first or second guest.
Well, you'll be on the first panel. There is no doubt about that.
Right.
So just
make it happen.
Stay tuned. All right. You're here. If you notice today, the slide on our coverage is Austin Cindric. And I know you're going to tell me that's an old car that I have up there, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm not not over the airways. Let's not do that.
But it is an old car, isn't it? It's not his current paint scheme, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, yep.
But, and you know why, we have him up there. We consider him a Columbus guy since he was born here. Talk about a little bit about his year this year, kind of an up and down. Where is he right now, as we look at it here in June?
He's been a little inconsistent, like you mentioned, a little up and down, but, he's another really young guy, but he's got the win in Talladega in the bank, so to speak. So he's in the playoffs, and he's an underrated guy on road courses. He showed some moxie at Mexico City this past weekend, and they have a lot of road courses coming up in Sonoma, and then they got the Chicago street course, the 4th of July. So I think he's about ready to go. I don't want to say a tear, but I think he's going to become much more consistent as the year goes on. Obviously, there's been some scuttlebutt behind the scenes with Penske over in the IndyCar world, but I really think he's in for a strong season. He's finally hitting that stride where he can be. I don't know if he's quite the perennial winner right now that Joey Logano and Ryan Blaney are, his Penske brethren on the NASCAR side, but I think he's starting to show he's a serious contender to get things done on a more week-to-week basis, and I think you're going to see that over the summer stretch here.
Now, the fact that his dad was high up in the Indy world with Penske and then was let go over, kind of leading up to the 500, Indy 500, how has that impacted, or will that impact him on the NASCAR circuit?
The captain, Roger Penske, has said that it does not bear any impact whatsoever, and Austin seconded that in a press conference a few weeks ago. He mentioned that he's got a job to do, and everything on that front is kind of separate. I'm sure it's a little more together than they'd like to admit, because family's family, and I'm sure some phone calls have taken place. But his seat still feels very comfortable, especially because, again, he's showing the ability to win. He's got that win at Talladega, as I previously mentioned, and he's becoming a more consistent driver. So maybe it takes away some cushion, but I don't think he's in any danger whatsoever. I think Roger Penske is professional enough to let Austin Cindric keep or lose his ride someday if that were to take place on his own merits. I mean, business is business. You know that as well as I do, and you kind of keep that separate.
All right. So now, before we keep going with NASCAR, because I do have a couple of recent kind of news things to talk to you about. But let's talk about Indy real quick. And I know, I'm a big open wheel fan, and I think, I probably concentrate now a little bit more on that. But, here in Columbus, we've got some presence, right, with Meyer Shank Racing Team. And even though Ray Hall, Letterman, Lanigan has moved over to Indy area, for the most part, they still have a garage here, still have an office here. We really, on the IndyCar side, locally, I mean, there's a lot to cheer for.
No, absolutely. Again, you mentioned Ray Hall across that 300 start, threshold, and of course Meyer Shank Racing, as you mentioned before. No, there's tons to look at. There's tons of connections as far as kind of the C-bus connection, if you will. As far as the Indy 500 goes, I mean, a great as always. The pomp and circumstance doesn't get any better. It just incredible stuff. I've been paying more attention to IndyCar this season. I know you're a big open wheel guy, and so I like to razz you about that. But I've been paying a little bit more attention. Kyle Kirkwood has won 3 races back. Now 2 back to back. There's tons of connections to IndyCar, and really, the older I get, the more I see the value in open wheel. So maybe you're slowly, I don't want to say converting me, but you're certainly influencing me.
Well, I feel good about that. Now, the question I have, of course, Graham Rahal on that RLL team went to New Albany High School, but it always surprised me. Like in this Indy, they brought back Takuma Sato, who's been wildly successful for them. Brought him back. He always seems to have a better car than Graham. Now, how is that possible?
I think it might be one of those things where, and I mean, no one likes to admit this, but it's one of those things you offer so-and-so the right deal, and you go, we're going to make sure, we're going to do our absolute doggone best to make sure you have the best car possible. Because I think these guys that come out for these one-offs, and, I think they don't want, they want to, maybe it's unlikely that they win because it is just a one-off, right? But, they want the true possibility. And I don't think they'll agree to it without some real assurances that, hey, we're going to do everything we can do. They don't want to just be kind of another face in the crowd. No disrespect to those that end up kind of on the back marker. But I think a lot of these guys that do the one-offs, of course, Castro Neves is another, that they don't want to just be a face in the crowd. So again, I think it's one of those things. They have so much time in preparation because it's only a one-race deal, right? So you get to center your whole season, your whole livelihood around that one race, where Graham Rahal or any other full-time IndyCar driver or any motorsports driver for that matter has a lot to think about before and after the Indy 500. And for these guys that do the one-offs, that's not really the case.
And, I really want Graham Rahal to get back in the winter. Sorry, he has been such a supporter of Columbus sports and of the city, and, continues to do so on social media. Does he have a chance to win again on the IndyCar circuit?
Oh, absolutely. He's still just 36. He's got the proper funding. He's got the talent. Absolutely, I think he's going to win again. I think he'll win again this year. Can I tell you a track? No, I really can't. But I just got a good feeling. Wouldn't it be beautiful here in a couple weeks? They come to beautiful Lexington, Ohio.
Mid Ohio, you bet. Yeah.
Yeah. Wouldn't it be beautiful if Graham Rahal, kind of the kind of the hometown hero, so to speak, were to find his way back in the winter circle? Wouldn't that be just incredible?
Oh, it'd be great. And what a great track, and he's done well there. I'm sure cheering for it. I just don't have my ear to the ground there enough. I don't know what the common thought is on that, but I sure hope he does, because he seems to race hard every week. He's always there. He's always supportive of the community. I think it would mean a lot to a lot of people if he did win.
I completely agree. I know it's been a long time since he's found victory. I think it goes all the way back to 2017. It's been a long time, but I got a good feeling. I think he's due. Certainly he is due, but I think the results are becoming more consistent, and I think there's a decent possibility that he gets it done. And as we talked about, he does have a good history at Mid Ohio coming up here in a couple of weeks. So we'll stay hopeful, fingers crossed, and maybe you and I will have something to talk about in a couple of weeks.
That'd be great. That would be great. Now, before we move over to NASCAR, your bread and butter, let's talk about your podcast, Racing Refresh. Tell everybody what that's about. We know it's Monday, but talk about times and where they can catch that, because for my money, I think dollar for dollar, the best program talking about NASCAR out there. I think you guys know so much about the racers and the history, but also about the business side. And I always learn something. So tell everybody about that and where they can catch that.
Well, thank you so much for those kind words, Kevin. Number one. Number two, you can catch Racing Refresh's weekly show, Speed Syndicate, Mondays on YouTube, and we also live stream to our Facebook page, and then it becomes available on demand on all your favorite podcast platforms the next day. And so you can check us out live every Monday at 9 p.m. Eastern time. But again, if you can't watch us live, you can certainly go back and watch the replay on YouTube, or again, every episode is made available on demand on your favorite podcast platforms the next day.
And I have been on the show. It's been a while. I have been on the show, and as I told everybody yesterday, I think I read up on one driver as much as I could and tried to steer the conversation that way the whole time, and was only partially successful, as it turned out.
That's okay. You know, I think you would do even better now at driving the conversation.
Well,
the other, but no, you were a fantastic guest. Matter of fact, it's where you and I first met.
That's right. That is exactly right. And I was, yeah. And I thought, here's a guy that can talk his stuff, and I bought everything. Changed my mind about 6 things. It was one of those kind of. But do you remember the driver? If people would have believed me that night, Haley Deegan would have won every race last year on NASCAR.
You were absolutely on the Haley Deegan train, and we talk about IndyCar. She's made the switch over to IndyCar. We'll see how she does there.
Yeah.
But no, at the time, obviously hindsight's 2020, right? But at the time, she was the hottest thing as far as blue chip prospects go in NASCAR. So why that hasn't panned out the way people thought it would, I couldn't tell you. There's always more to those stories than kind of meets the eye that we get kind of privy to.
And didn't she race trucks for a little bit?
She did.
Yeah.
She didn't have a ton of success. She didn't embarrass herself, don't get me wrong. She ended up about top 20 in standings. But she just has never developed into, again, that blue chip prospect that at the time you and I first met several years ago, she was thought to be, because she was thought to be, at the time, the first legitimate, and this is no disrespect to Danica Patrick and others that have raced, but the first legitimate NASCAR female star. And the reason I don't put Danica in that category is because obviously her IndyCar ties, she came over from there. And so she was thought that she was going to be the first legitimate female kind of NASCAR homegrown star, and that unfortunately that has not really panned out. You never say never. Late bloomers happen. Look at the career of Martin Truex Jr. If we judged him off his first decade, he would have he would not be a first ballot Hall of Famer like he will be. So you never say never. And now, as far as females go, we kind of have our hopes in Tony Breidinger, an up and coming truck series driver in the Craftsman Truck Series. So keep an eye on her. But yeah, you were all over the Haley Deegan train, and unfortunately, it just has never quite left the station.
Not quite. I know.
Never say never.
I know. Okay, so let's get to some NASCAR. We talked about Austin Cindric. We're going to use him as a Columbus guy, right? I mean, you're born here. We get to do that. But let's go. You mentioned he did okay at Mexico. Your thoughts about that whole weekend?
I thought it was great. I think it's great to see NASCAR expanding its footprint into an international space, and we see that with every other major sport. And why can't NASCAR do that? Now, obviously, among NASCAR, because the median fan is a little older, it's a little bit more controversial of a topic, because as we know, and God bless the older generation, but they're a little slow to adapt to change. And so it became controversial in some circles, but I don't think the weekend could have gone better. They did have some travel issues getting over there But once everything settled down and they got to Mexico City, if you go up on social media, on X, on Facebook, the fans mob these drivers like TMZ does the hottest celebrities. I mean, they absolutely adored having NASCAR there. And this is no disrespect to the great fans in the U.S. that will always be the bedrock of NASCAR. But, I mean, they looked like the Beatles were coming over back in the 60s. They just absolutely, clearly adored the idea that NASCAR was there. So that was great. And then I thought overall it was a great race. Obviously, some rain got in the way, but that created a lot of different strategies, and that's always fun to see. And that's a little harder to come by in the stage racing era. But overall, I thought it was a great weekend. And again, nice to see NASCAR expand its footprint a little bit internationally. It was the first international points race since 1958, just a couple of years ago.
That was actually before I was born. That's how old ago that was. Long ago. Yeah.
Oh, well, that's all right. Luckily, you and I are both old souls.
Yeah.
So it feels like we know what was happening.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I thought it was a great weekend, Kevin.
Do you think that, given all that, and even given the trouble, and I'm sure that logistically everybody was learning, should Carson Hocevar kept his powder dry on that?
Without question. I don't understand at all why. I don't know how many live stream incidents NASCAR drivers need to have before NASCAR drivers realize, hey, you might want to watch what you say on a live stream, and more importantly, what a closed-minded point of view, right? Hopefully Carson's eyes were opened up as he was in Mexico City this weekend, but just what a closed-minded point of view. And so I was disappointed to hear all that. But again, two things. Number one, you're on a live stream, watch what you say. Number two, how about lay your eyes on a place before we say some very, I don't know, closed-minded and outdated thoughts, in my point of view.
Yeah, I mean, he referred to it, I won't do the graphic language, as an S-hole before the race. And so...
Yeah, I mean, you haven't been there. What do you know?
Yeah.
I don't get it.
Well, and it's just funny. I mean, you see the battle online about it. People referring to NASCAR giving him. I mean, it was his own team that fined him, right? The Spire folks issued the fine. They're going to send him some training to find out why that. It's like you tell your kids. It's, look, you can be honest, but there's 100 ways, right? And you and I have talked about this before. There's 100 ways to do it. You don't have to pick that way. You can tell the same story the way and you don't have to be controversial about it.
I probably quote you once a week where I say there's 1,000 ways to say something. You can try to pick the kindest.
Yeah. Well, and in his case, I mean, he's a young man. I mean, he was Rookie of the Year last year. So he's a good driver. He's going to have a lot of success, has had a lot of success. So hopefully he gets himself squared away. But it was funny. I saw that and I thought, boy, his team and NASCAR and the sponsors and all the people that worked so hard. It takes one statement. And do they not think that people are watching Twitch? Do they not think on a racing game?
I mean, and again, he's not the first driver to have an issue.
Well, we know that. Yeah, right.
Haley Deegan had one, and of course, the very infamous Kyle Larson incident was on Twitch. And so, I just don't know how many incidents it's going to take for these drivers to go, hey, I might want to watch the old P's and Q's if I'm going to live stream. But that's just my take. No, Carson Hocevar is a great, talented young driver. He's causing a lot of brouhaha on the track these days. He and Ricky Stenhouse are really at each other's throats. I met Carson a few years back and couldn't have been kinder. Hopefully he learns from this and has a bright future.
Now, the other thing going on this week, of course, everybody goes to Pocono. We know all about Pocono for a lot of years, both NASCAR and open wheel. Andretti's always seemed to do well there, when they were driving their cars. And you got one change now. We're going to be watching the Xfinity race because Dale Jr. is going to be a crew chief. What do you make of that, and where is that going?
Absolutely, that just broke today. He's filling in for Honor Zilich's crew chief, who's serving a one-race suspension. And I have no idea what to make of it because Dale Jr., to my knowledge, has never been a crew chief before. And so And you think about that. I mean, at this stage of his life, for Dale Jr. to embark on a new NASCAR frontier, you didn't know it was possible. It's kind of like discovering other life forms, right? So I mean, for him to embark on a new frontier at this stage, I don't know if that leads to more, but it's very exciting, and a lot of people, and that's going to get a lot of eyes on the Xfinity Series. And as you know, Kevin, the lower series need those eyes, and that's going to get a lot of people to pay attention on CW this Saturday, and that's going to be a lot of fun just to see how Dale Jr. does. And remember, he's still doing double duty because this is the last race on Prime for the Cup Series, so he's got to do the practice and qualifying from the broadcast booth, and then he's got to go put literally his crew chief hat on, and so he'll be extremely busy. But yeah, that just broke earlier today, and man, that is I wish I had a better, more magical, mystical answer to give you, but because he hasn't ever done it before, I can't tell you what it's going to be. But there's nothing like good old-fashioned controlled chaos. Am I right?
Yeah,
So it should be a lot of fun.
right. Well, we should say it wasn't too controversial. The reason that there was an opening, a couple of lug nuts got away from him. Marty Lindley, who's been doing it a long time. A little bit surprising, but yeah, some lug nuts on Connor Zilich's car were not secured. He actually finished second at Nashville that day. But anyway, they needed to fill in a spot. They let him go to Mexico, but have to pay the piper here at Pocono. That was a lot of P's, man. I drew that up. And so Dale Jr. will jump in between his podcasts and, like you said, working for Prime and doing all his stuff. But we're looking forward to all that. Anything else you're looking forward to this weekend at Pocono?
Just looking forward to Pocono because it's a unique track, right? I mean, it's only got 3 turns, and all 3 corners couldn't be more different. They're siblings, but the personalities are so diverse, if you will. So it's going to be a very exciting race. Usually some fuel strategy plays out in Pocono. Hopefully everybody's brakes are okay because Pocono is hard on the brakes, and we've seen a lot of brake failures there over the years, and some death-defying crashes, unfortunately. So hopefully everybody is good on the brakes, and but it should be an exciting 400 miles Sunday afternoon.
First-time winner?
I think Ty Gibbs is getting closer and closer. So I'm not going to make any official prediction on that, but I'm kind of riding the hot hand. And speaking of hot hands, let's not kid ourselves. Until Mexico City, Carson Hocevar has been in the conversation every week, so maybe this is the week he breaks through.
Yeah.
So keep an eye on those two. And then John Hunter Nemechek of Legacy Motor Club has been hot lately. So yeah, it's possible. I'm not gonna go out on a limb and say yes, but don't be stunned.
Well, we will get you in a couple weeks, and before that, we'll be listening Monday night, 9 o'clock, Racing Refresh. YouTube channel, Facebook, get them later if you can't get them at 9, because I know you'll be wrapping all that up.
Absolutely, and we're looking forward to it. And thanks so much, Kevin, for having me, and this has been an absolute pleasure, and I can't wait to do it again.
And I promise next time I'll have Cindric's current paint scheme. All right, appreciate you not jumping on that first thing.
Hey, that's look, there's professional and then there's personal. I'll take you later and we'll talk about it.
Okay, so, that's when I'll take my woodshed moment. Yeah, I got you. Okay.
Yeah.
Hey,
Yep.
Logan, thanks a bunch. Logan Morris from Racing Refresh. We'll talk to you in a couple of weeks.
Thanks so much, Kevin. Have a great one.
Okay, man. Hey, thanks. And that again, Logan Morris. You got to check it out. These guys know what's going on around racing generally, but if you want to get the scuttlebutt, they've got it. And they've got a bunch of loyal listeners that email in, comment in, and keep the conversation going. Always a lot of fun. 9 o'clock Monday nights, Racing Refresh. We'll have Logan on again, whether it's about the Reds, which he probably knows just as much as about them as he does about racing. We'll make sure to get him, and he's just always been a great friend. And since we met the first time doing Racing Refresh, and have enjoyed his company. So we'll get him back on. If you have any questions for him or me about any of that stuff, just want to remind you, you can email us at info@cbussports.com. That's info@cbussports.com. CBus Sports, 2 S's in the middle, 1 at the end. And we'll be glad to take those questions and answer them as we get them. Maybe you have some feelings about something we just touched on, but man, he knows his stuff. You know what? Next time I have him on, I'm going to try to dig into some history, and we'll see. Well, we've got a question coming. The question, we'll have a trivia question today about NASCAR. This is he shouldn't even be listening. It's just too easy for him. But next time we'll find something. We'll dig in just a little bit. Before we leave you today, got a couple of things we want to talk about. One, I don't know how could you, if you're on social media, you saw the big to-do with Caitlin Clark and J.C. Sheldon in the game between Indiana and Connecticut. J.C. Sheldon playing for the Connecticut Sun. Of course, played at Dublin Kaufman here in town and then at Ohio State. Caitlin Clark and she kind of Big Ten, they knocked it about a little bit during their games. But man, it reached, I don't want to say fever pitch. That's a dad joke. And bad joke. But last night they kind of went at each other. You should check out the video. What happened was they've been talking a little bit and bumping around a little bit on the court. And boy, the WNBA right now, very physical league. Sheldon came out over a screen and was guarding Caitlin Clark and got a hand in her face. I don't think it was intentional, but got her in the eye a little bit. And Caitlin Clark turned away from it and then all of a sudden decided she wasn't going to take it, went over and pushed J.C. Sheldon. She then kind of retreated. Another one of the Sun players comes up and bumps into Clark and knocks her to the ground. And it just got me thinking about the nature of things. Been a lot of comments, and it's been one way or the other about Caitlin Clark. And I'm going to tell you why it's really two things that can be true at the same time, right? Caitlin Clark is a lightning rod, no doubt about it. People love her. People on the other side, not so much. The Connecticut Sun fans, definitely not so much. Some other teams, we have April Reese and, just a lot of people that it's just been a lot. And we know sports, we all follow it and we all follow, whether just talking to Logan about NASCAR. I mean, there are stories there that go week to week, the soap opera of racing. And, right now in the WNBA, it's Caitlin Clark kind of versus the world. But here's what I think. We saw here at Ohio State when she was at Iowa. And if you remember, Ohio State beat them late in the game. The crowd rushes the court. One of the young ladies running onto the court makes some contact with Caitlin Clark. She spins almost as though against physics and falls to the ground. And then there's a big discussion at the press conference. And it looked to me, and again, I've been around sports my whole life, and you get kind of a feel for the way things move. I've umpired, refereed, as well as played. And it just didn't seem natural what happened that day. It just seemed a little overblown. It seemed a little like soccer. I love soccer. I think it's a great sport to learn. Never played it. Kind of like hockey for me. It wasn't around in Zanesville when I was growing up. And I appreciate the people that are really good at it. But the thing that bugs me about soccer is when guys take that fall, and you know what I'm talking about, even if you love it. And most of the people that I know that are really into it wish that wouldn't happen like that. And, just the histrionics around that of running the stretcher out onto the field sometimes. We've seen the classic examples. As they're taking him off, the player jumps off and runs back onto the pitch. And you just go, do we need that? And then we'll watch a football game and guys just getting annihilated and they stay in there. I just wish it weren't that way. And I here's what I think. Caitlin Clark is a godsend for the WNBA. I think she has brought the two A's to it, attention and attendance, to the WNBA in a way that has allowed them to transcend into a regular watch for even the casual fan. And that is a huge deal in sports. It's like when I was in independent minor league baseball. If you became the thing in that town for the summer, You didn't have to fill the gate every night, but people had fun. They started talking. It just got better and better. That's what you want. And Caitlin Clark has done that on an international level in terms of attention and attendance. We know that other teams have had to go to bigger venues in order to accommodate her star power. And she's a great player, not just a shooter. She loves that. Go to the left. Don't let her go to the left. Outside the arc. We know that shot. But she's a great playmaker, plays good defense, but every once in a while. And she said this in the press conference after the game. She's an entertainer. And she knows that. And she does that great. But sometimes entertaining is perhaps falling to the ground a little more quickly than is warranted. Just my opinion. So I think she can be great, and the referees need to make sure that she's not being taken advantage of. And frankly, her teammates need to, I think, help out a little bit more. They don't seem to be quick to the fight. But I think, I just wish she didn't do that. Because then it takes away from everything. In this case, I don't think J.C. Sheldon meant to poke her in the eye. I really don't. She was playing hard off a screen, didn't have complete control. Clark gives her a shove, somebody else shoves, she falls to the ground and becomes the great victim. Now, is she a victim sometimes? Absolutely. There are some people that don't like her taking credit for the success of the league, even though it's kind of like arguing, if you're a golfer, we're really good and we brought people and Tiger's taking all the credit. Well, you made a lot more money because of Tiger. You should be thankful. When I was a kid, everybody said all golfers should mail part of their check to Arnold Palmer because he got eyes on the game when TV first started covering tour golf, when it wasn't exactly the most exciting thing going. His personality made it a must watch on the 3 channels that you got. Tiger did the same thing. Caitlin Clark has done the same thing. It doesn't mean that the people came before her weren't any good. Of course they were. She didn't win the most valuable player last year. Somebody else did. She didn't make the Olympic team. A lot of good players. That's okay. But to disrespect her abilities and what she's done, and to just look for reasons to bother her, I was going to say poke her in the eye, but that's not appropriate here. I think you've got to protect her from that stuff, but then she's got to not, take those soccer falls. Anyway, that's my, kind of quick opinion about it. I really think she needs to, let it be a star. Be entertaining. I wish that weren't part of the entertainment. That's all. So 2 cents on that. We'll continue to monitor, but J.C. Sheldon certainly got a lot of views for herself with the Connecticut Sun. Good to see her. What a great player, and so committed to her community. I mean, came back and coached at Ohio State in between times. So, great player. The Clippers were back in action. Our last story today. The Clippers were back in action last night, but frankly, Indianapolis just way, way hotter coming in. And they win it last night 7-2 at Huntington Park. Ended up being a beautiful night. More than 17,000 hot dogs eaten last night at Diamond Dog. Crazy. 17,000 hot dogs. I started thinking about end to end, and then I went, I can't calculate that. It's a lot of hot dogs, though. Get you to Newark, maybe? I don't know. Not sure. So anyway, the Indianapolis Indians come in and win 7-2. If you didn't notice, and by the way, tonight, 2 left-handers going. We always like to see when Parker Messick is throwing for Columbus. He goes tonight, and he'll face lefty Hunter Barco for Indianapolis. They had their big prospect, their number 1 prospect going last night, Bubba Chandler, who did well. I mean, he showed why he's the number 1. But then the reliever that got the win, Ryder Ryan, also a good one. In baseball, if you don't go 5 innings, you're just not going to get the win. And so the reliever who went a couple of innings got the win. I don't really understand that either, but that's the way it goes. So their reliever got it. Bubba Chandler, their big prospect, who we'll see in a Pirates uniform, not that far away, got the win. The guy doing really well for Columbus out of the bullpen right now is the guy they picked up in late May, Matt Crook, who came over from the A's organization. He is 4-1 in 18 relief appearances. His earned run average 1.23. So Matt Crook, when you go out there and you see him throwing, keep an eye on him. He may be one of those guys that might creep up to the Guardians when they need a left-handed reliever. He's been done very well situationally for the Clippers so far this year. Another guy from the Guardians that is down there, one of the guys who hasn't thrown since training camp last year in 2024, Trevor Stephen came in. He's on a rehab start with the Clippers. He came in last night, really just had 2/3 of an inning, not much to sample. But before missing all of last year with a right ulnar collateral ligament surgery, reconstruction, he had 180 relief appearances for the Guardians the 3 years prior to that, 21 through 23. So keep an eye on him. He's someone good to see back. That is such a hard thing, to be out for an entire year and then start throwing hard after surgery like that. And you just pray that nothing disconnects while you're doing all that. But he got in there last night, and we'll look for him more going forward. Tonight, as we mentioned, 7:05 start at Huntington Park. Looks like it might be a nice night. Might rain late. That's what they're saying. But I get out there and watch it again. Parker Messick going. I'll always like to see him throw. He's going to be a good one. I think he'll be with the Guardians sometime next year. That'd be my prediction. Maybe, just depending on how things go, could be late in the year this year when they expand the rosters. We'll see. But I like his style. He's a battler, and he's getting real comfortable on the mound as a starter. All right, now let's get to our trivia question. By the way, Logan Morris knows his stuff. I'm just going back over that in my head. So we were glad to have him here today. Our question yesterday. Oh, before we say that, by the way, and I don't know why I missed this. Tyler Parsons, talking about the Clippers, the president and GM of the Clippers, he'll be here on Friday. They have an afternoon game tomorrow, so we scheduled him for Friday. The new GM of the Clippers came here, a lateral move from Durham, a native of Michigan, not a Wolverine. He went to Central Michigan. We'll ask him about all that, but that'll be on Friday. So Tyler Parsons. Tomorrow we're going to talk about our book club, and I know that excites all of you. We want you to be here so you can be part of that. Love sports books. Just love them. And nobody else is doing this. You need to be here to listen and to maybe disagree with me about everything. That's okay too. We don't mind. But at least we'll go into that and what books, maybe if you're a little older like I am, what books you may have read that shaped you. I mentioned Behind the Mask by Bill Freehan. Those of Googling quickly, who is Bill Freehan? He was a catcher for the Tigers in their 68, 69 kind of heyday. Now we can get to trivia. And this is an interesting one because it really is kind of apples and oranges compared to today. It was what NHL goalie has the most wins? And that's because we were talking yesterday about Elvis Merzlikins being announced as a team member of the Latvian Olympic team when that all takes place next February. So we were talking about goaltenders with our friend Ed Francis. And again, the question, what NHL goalie has the most wins? And the answer is, I like saying this in the French, Martin Brodeur. Martin Brodeur. Anglicized. He had 691 wins with New Jersey and St. Louis out of a Total played of 1,266 games, so well over 500. But the interesting thing about Brodeur is that they had ties. Can you imagine how many wins he would have had if half of the ties that he went forward with, and I don't have that in front of me, but it was hundreds. If he would have won half of those, he'd have put this record out of sight. So Martin Brodeur, and he did play a little bit with the overtime system, but played a lot of games where there were ties. But he had 691 wins. That's a lot. So that's the answer to yesterday's. Now, speaking of wins, in honor of Logan Morris and his vast NASCAR knowledge, we ask, who has the most NASCAR wins? So right now, who has the most NASCAR wins? And I'll say it this way. It's a nice, even number. And if you can answer that off the top of your head, we know you can go to Google and the interwebs and figure out who it is. But see if you know off the top of your head. Take a guess and then go look. So who has the most NASCAR wins? And again, an even number. All right. Another one in the books today. Our thanks to Logan Morris of Racing Refresh, which you can catch Monday nights, 9 o'clock on the Racing Refresh YouTube channel, on their Facebook page as well. And then you can go into the archives later and grab it and listen and get smart about NASCAR and racing. That's what I do. I'm just glad I'm the one asking questions, because if I were asked, you would know the holes in my knowledge. We're glad you've been alongside. Remember, we got the book club talk about tomorrow, and then on Friday, Tyler Parsons, the GM of the Columbus Clippers, will be in. We'll get caught up with him. In the meantime, we hope you have a great day. I'm Kevin Rouch on behalf of everyone here at the Daily Scrum. Have a great afternoon.